Welcome back to another episode of Consciously Clueless. I'm your host, Carly, and I'll be your guide on this journey from consciousness to cluelessness and back around again. Thanks for joining me for another Sunday solo episode. Whether it's Sunday night, you're getting ready for the week, Monday morning, you're gearing up for work, or whatever day this podcast has found you, I'm really glad you're here. So I wanted to do a quick conversation about manifestation because it is something that has come into my life and my consciousness really consistently in the last year, I would say. And it's definitely starting to infiltrate my work and my offerings. And also I've started to talk about using manifestation or taking classes or those techniques in my posts on social media or maybe in my newsletter. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about it because it is totally one of those concepts that sounds really woo-woo, out there, sitting on a meditation pillow, that kind of thing. And maybe it is. That's up for your interpretation. But it has become a real game changer in how I see the world. There are so many great resources to kind of look into Manifestation 101, and I'll link some of my favorites and the ones that have helped me the most in the show notes so you can check them out. But one article, as I was reading about things today, manifesting, actually popped up from Psychology Today. Manifestation, the Real Deal by Denise Forner, who has a PhD. And what I thought was interesting is she wrote about something I've been feeling lately too. So she wrote about how the same thing that I kind of said, manifestation is seen as this kind of like witchy out there universe thing, but how it's actually quite grounded in reality. So I'm going to read you this section that she wrote because I think it really summarizes things well. Quote, "Many successful people will tell you they've gotten to where they have by dreaming big, keeping that dream alive for themselves, and doing whatever it takes to get there. Their path to success offers the rest of us a step-by-step guide to manifestation. Step 1, create a vision. Step 2, keep your mind filled with positive thoughts related to that vision, imagining it as if it's already come true. Step 3, do everything possible to achieve what you desire. Step 4, watch your vision become reality. Put this way, manifestation isn't such a far-out New Age concept. It's not nearly as glamorous or easy to sell, but it's much more likely to yield results," unquote. So there are an overwhelming amount of resources on manifestation, like I mentioned. But they all kind of come back to the same thing, which I think is the law or the principles, really, of what it means. And it's the fact that we create our reality. And that is really what this article is getting at and what manifestation is getting at. And what I've learned is just that we're creating everything we see and feel. So if we want it to be different, then we get to choose that. And that is the part where I think people get hung up, because it's like you don't just close your eyes and snap your fingers or flick your wand or whatever it is and make things change, but it's imagining it as true. You can think of things in your life where you're like, oh, I would love to, but I can't because blah, 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 blah. So automatically you're putting that off the table for yourself. So what if you just thought of those things that you wanted as absolutely possible? Running your own business, getting healthier, mending relationships with people, whatever it is, paying off student loans, a new car. If you already think they're not possible, then your subconscious is going to be like, okay, that's not here. That's not sticking here. So this idea of manifestation being really far out, it doesn't have to be. There are a lot of techniques, and you can really get into it depending on how far you go if you get into the internet and fall down a manifestation hole, which is kind of fun sometimes. But there are more otherworldly concepts that I really like and I think are helpful. But if you're not someone who subscribes to that stuff as much, starting with the idea of manifestation from this really grounded place about just, yeah, we create our reality, it's a lot easier to think that it's possible. And there are techniques, like I said, that help with this. Some work better for some people than others. Maybe it's visualization, maybe it's meditation, it's journaling, it's talking from the end. There's all these different things, but you have to believe it first. And that sounds so corny, but if you think about it, it makes total sense. If you don't believe something's possible, why would you even continue to focus on it? So my ideas around manifesting are just, I create everything in my reality, in my own reality. So if that's the case, then I just have to believe the things that I want are possible and know that they're on their way. And believe it like with my whole heart and head and soul and body. Not just like, yeah, that'd be great, but like, nope, this is mine. And if you can think that way, then the techniques about manifesting or the tools or the tips or the videos or whatever else you find start to make a little more sense. Because when I first started hearing about manifesting, and it's funny because it kind of fell in my lap about people I was following on social media or things I started reading, and I just all of a sudden felt like I was like, manifesting needs to be in my life. I need this concept. I need to learn about this. It's going to help me. And it was probably about a year ago now that I was really, really diving into it. And at first I was really skeptical because our society has taught us to be skeptical of things like this. We love the idea that things are hard and you suffer and it has to be brutal to get what you want. And sometimes maybe that's true. Maybe that's the trajectory for whatever reason. But what if believing that these things are possible is the first step? What if it doesn't always have to be so freaking hard? Like, just ask that question. What about that? What if that is true? And wouldn't that be lovely to just start from that belief? It's easy to look at this stuff and think that you're supposed to be casting spells or making a potion for this to happen. And if you're reading something and it's kind of giving you that vibe, I would err on the caution of maybe looking for another source. Because everything that I connect to is really grounded in reality and practicality and just making that a fact of life. I create my own reality. I can do that. I can manifest whatever I want for myself. And if you want to get into it, you can manifest stuff for other people that are in your reality. All of the above. We could really go in because I've really gotten into this. But I just wanted to talk about it from this very basic framework because it doesn't have to be as crazy and out there. And once you start to believe it, you'll start to notice that things are falling into place a little more. Maybe you'll notice these signs, or you'll have feelings of deja vu, or you'll have dreams, whatever it is, when you start to kind of like fully give into that. And the idea is really to surrender. Because surrendering and believing is what makes you tap into that feeling. If you can surrender and say, okay, I believe it's on its way, and I'm just going to trust the way it gets here. And by it, I mean the thing that you want. That surrendering is really, really important, and it's just giving in and trusting. And that is hard, especially like me. I am kind of a control freak in certain situations. So that was my biggest hang up. I wanted to control how things got to me. I still do sometimes. I want my Instagram following to be bigger, or my newsletter list to be longer, or to have more patrons. And if I focus every single day on what I don't have, that's all I'm going to see. But instead, I imagine all of the people that I connect with, all of the people that follow me, all of the people that like this podcast or that like the content I put out on Patreon, whatever it is. Think of it growing, thinking of it as this big thing that feels better. And that makes me inspired to take action to get there because I believe I can do it. It doesn't have to be crazy and out there. You create your own reality, whether you're doing it intentionally or not. So we're always creating our own reality with our thoughts and our vibrations and our attitudes. So if that's the case, you might as well help it along into the direction that you want consciously. Because then you're not manifesting things out of doubt and fear and sadness. You can create your reality, I promise. I absolutely promise. And I'm really excited to keep diving into this so I can keep working on it, bringing it into the things I do and offer. It's going to be great. Thanks for listening to another episode of Consciously Clueless. If you're enjoying this podcast, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. If you want to help me get this into the ears of more listeners, send it to a friend, text it to a family member, share on social media. Whatever you can do really helps me out. If you want to be read on air as the review of the week, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. And finally, if you haven't checked out what I'm doing on Patreon, seriously, go look, patreon.com/consciouslycarly. Until next time.